All right, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Mark Kutek, and today my guest is Oakley, Mrs. Oakley. She's running for Congress, right? And
Yes.
so, super excited to meet somebody who is running for federal government. And today we'll talk about her personal life, why, the big question, why is running, and what she thinks that she can do, for the country and for the District 3. So, welcome, and please share with us your background. I had a chance to kind of read up on you, on the website, and but I think the audience wants to hear from you. So please fire away.
Thanks so much for having me here. And I am Angel Oakley. I'm running for Congress in the 3rd Congressional District of Illinois, which runs from Chicago out to West Chicago up to Elgin. And I've lived in this area for about 30 years. I married my husband and raised 3 children, started my business, got very involved in the community, and I've lived in I think about 6 different towns throughout the district. And so I love Illinois. So many great things in Illinois. I grew up thinking Chicago was one of the best cities, even though I had moved a lot during my childhood. And I've seen it deteriorate quite a bit as far as the unity in this state. We have a lot of division, and we definitely have increased taxes that have made it very uncomfortable for a lot of families.
They are astronomical.
And so you see people getting ready to retire and they can't stay in their homes. They have to actually sell and move. And you see kids leaving and finding opportunity in other states. And that's also hard for parents, if they want to be around their grandkids.
Oh, sure.
So when I decided to run for office, it was really a calling at the time that we have in this country right now with this massive division, and feeling like I had had a history in my business and also in my public service where I was able to be a bridge builder. When I was a trustee in Winfield, we had a lot of division, and we had 2 different factions that couldn't get along, and it kept them in gridlock. And I tended to be the negotiator, the one getting in there and using my skills, I guess, from college. I studied management and leadership and management information systems. And so we always had to look at how we could create win-win solutions. And I would listen to both sides, try to be the interpreter, and come up with some innovative solution for them to get behind. And I really feel like we're missing that in Congress and also at our state level as well. So we need more leaders that can focus on the solutions rather than the vilification and the partisanship that we have going on. And if we could do that, I think we could dig ourselves out of this financial hole that we have. I mean, on a federal level, we're nearing $39 trillion in deficit. And on a state level, we've got a couple of billion now that we can't even find to pay our obligations. So they're getting more and more creative about how they can tax us.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, that was a great introduction. So I believe that a lot of people want to know a lot of different small things. And I think as you running for Congress and closer you get, to the election day, a lot of people will put you on the microscope. And so they wanted to probably find anything negative or anything they can. I can feel it. Now, you were born in...
I was born here in Chicago, actually in Elgin.
Oh, in Elgin.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you went to school also in Elgin?
Yes. So I was born in Elgin, and my parents divorced when I was 1 year old. So my mother was on her own.
And single mother.
Single mother, very young. And it was really hard. So we were on food stamps. We had public assistance as she was trying to get it together. And it was pretty hard. It was just the 2 of us trying to figure it out. I think we moved 11 times before I was 6 years old. Wow. So there was a lot of instability there. And then...
Well, that's probably what you probably have a compassion for single mothers because you experience it on your own.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to state or federal help, for the people that help, they certainly deserve it. There should be a bridge, to get people out of the negative influence of life. Um, so, what? How do you see the today's environment with wasteful spending? When it comes to SNAP, when it comes to healthcare for illegal immigrants, how do you see that? And we'll jump, as we get each topic covered.
I have an incredible amount of compassion for people that need help.
Mm-hmm.
And we should help people learn how to fish. But giving people fish creates a dependency, and that's not what we should be doing. The government decided to get into the welfare space because we had widows and single mothers and some of the elderly that we wanted to collectively help. But it has grown and become so large, and people have used it as a lifestyle. And then we've had so many people jump in and decide to abuse it because there's just all this money available, so we're going to take advantage of it. And we don't have real good checks and balances. So I'm actually incredibly fiscally conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I have an immense amount of compassion, but there has to be a lot of accountability associated with that if it's tax dollars. I much prefer the local organizations like churches and Rotary and those organizations that raise money from the community members and local small businesses that care about their community, and then distribute the funds to the people in the community because they know who needs it.
They are more effective.
They're way more effective. Absolutely. And so when you have a federal government doling that stuff out, it's so many layers from
that's like being at the 30,000 feet, you cannot see down, at the last
Right.
300 because they're just like impossible, right? And so I totally get it.
Yeah.
So 6 years old, and then you become teenager, and how did your life throughout the teenage years look like?
So even when I was 6, I always had this entrepreneurial mind. I used to play restaurant with my mom when I was very little, and then at 9 years old, I was buying things at the local convenience store and selling them to my friends at school.
Oh, okay. All right.
I started babysitting for the owner of the bakery, and she would give me the day-old donuts, and I would do an order form at school and sell the day-old donuts to my friends at school. So I was one of the only kids that I knew in elementary school that had $100 bills stuffed in my old camera. You know those little old camera containers?
Oh,
They used to
yeah.
The little
Yeah.
I used to have a lot of those in my room, and they all had money in there.
So you made your money. You made your first money. What did you buy? What was your first thing that you want to buy?
You know, I was so proud of myself. I'm trying to remember how old I was, maybe 11. My mom wanted a Papasan chair. Do you know? Those are these big circular chairs. And my mom wanted one, and I bought it for her. I had the money to do that. And I just felt like I was so proud of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it was nice to be able to get things for people. The one thing that I wish I knew at that age was about investing. I didn't learn about investing until I was 19. But, I could have started a lot earlier, which with compound interest makes a big difference. And so that's something I'm very passionate about is entrepreneurial education for our kids and financial literacy. I think when we're talking about the welfare state and about areas that have massive poverty, it's so important that the kids have those tools so that they can break themselves out of it. And we don't have to worry about minimum wage because they can make whatever they want to make.
Yeah.
It's sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit.
You don't get stuck to the $15 an hour catch. So.
Oh, for sure. I think performance is ultimately the pathway to success. But, you need to have a discipline. You need to have a respect, and you need to put stuff in. There's no free lunch, like what's the Mr. Friedman said, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so 15, 17, 18, 19?
So then we had moved to Ohio. I went to school in Ohio, and I did vocational school where I focused on marketing.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that a lot. I was working at multiple jobs. I worked at an organic farm when I was 14. And then,
They already had organic farms.
yes, we sheared the sheep and
Wow.
we had the
Okay.
little shop. It was awesome. We would skim the fat off the milk and make butter.
Mm-hmm.
We tapped the maple trees and made maple syrup.
Oh, that's exciting.
So I
Yeah.
was out in Amish country
Okay.
in Ohio,
Okay.
which was pretty awesome. At the time, actually, I didn't think it was so awesome, but now as an adult, I think that was pretty cool that I got to do all that. And then I worked at a nursing home. I ran the dietary for the dementia unit,
Oh, wow.
which
Yeah,
gave me a
that's
lot of
challenging, right?
insight.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, so much. Uh, just I learned so much from that because it was a sad state to see people who had amazing lives.
Mm-hmm.
No one came to see them anymore.
Oh man, that's painful. That is painful.
Beautiful people. And, sometimes they'd go from Jekyll to Hyde. And it was just a really big eye-opening experience for me. And I do have a heart for the elderly and their care. And I think we can do better as a nation.
Well, that certainly builds respect,
Mhm.
but once you see it, experience it, right? Yeah, it means like, and you feel the love, and they are full of love, and they want to give it to somebody, and nobody coming.
Yeah.
That's not for everybody. Not everybody can do that.
And then I went into retail. I was in retail management, worked at the mall. And that was like Chinese wages. We worked so much and made very, very little. But shortly after that, I got a congressional scholarship to be a youth ambassador to Germany. And it was for citizen diplomacy. So I went over and lived and worked in Germany for a year.
What city?
I was in Bonn for 2 months.
Okay,
And
that was the
then-
used to capital of the Western Germany, right?
And then Hamburg.
Hamburg. Okay,
Mhm.
that's up north. That's the seaport.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Ja, du auch?
Oh,
Also ein bisschen. Ja.
my Deutsch is schlecht. Ziemlich schlecht. Yeah, very bad. Yeah. I learned German for 9 years, but I forgot totally everything. But pretty cool.
Ja, etwas with the Parlamentarischen Patenschaftsprogramm. And it's a partnership between the U.S. and the German Bundestag to help with relations and citizen diplomacy.
Do you still have some friends in Germany?
I do still have contacts there. Actually, we're going to be interviewing. So I'm on the selection. I still get the emails to help with the selection process. So we're actually going through the selection process in February.
Okay.
I'll be
that's
interviewing
exciting.
more students, and yeah, I love it.
And so, how many years you stayed in Germany?
So just the 1 year.
Okay, 1 year. Okay.
And then it's been almost 30 years, 31 years, goodness, time goes by, that I've been working with the selection committee.
Okay.
And it was through the U.S. State Department. It's a phenomenal program, and it really taught me to look at our differences as unique instead of weird, like to appreciate the differences between
for sure.
cultures,
Oh,
right?
yeah. So I'm Czechoslovakian. I maybe mentioned I was born in Czechoslovakia, but now it's called Czech Republic. They split.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do work around the world, and I see the differences between cultures. And one thing that I learn is that everything that's happening in the United States,
Mhm.
especially on the federal level, tend to sprout elsewhere around the world. So everybody around the world looking at us
Mhm.
as a beacon of freedom, beacon of every opportunity, and people trying to mimic that. Whether it's good or bad, that's kind of what it is, right? And so during my travels, especially during the Biden administration and first Trump, people were people were always questioning what kind of leader we have, especially during the Biden. He cannot walk, he cannot talk. Who's actually writing, all the administration, who's signing all the bills, who's doing all the decision making. And so they said, America needs to be a leader, and America needs to have, excuse my language, balls. That's kind of how I see it. And so, throughout my career, I always gravitated for females because they are much gentler, they are easier to work with. And so you running for federal government now, what would you want to be part of there? Like, what's your end goal, or not goal? Like, what is the um, where you were gonna gravitate?
So going back to the balls thing, I think it's the moral courage, right? We need courage.
Hmm.
I used to get a lot of that when I was in local government. I remember I was out one evening and they said, "You don't have the balls to do this job." And I said, "I have a uterus that birthed 3 children."
Hmm.
So that is pretty powerful overall. And I am committed to moral courage and being able to stand up for my values and beliefs and not compromising to the political pressures of the partisanship. And for me, I think that the most important thing that we have lost through our political process is that in our democratic republic, we are supposed to be representing our people in our district.
Mhm.
And so many of our leaders, they get elected, they go and they get swept up in the partisan chaos, and they forget that
The commitments,
the
right?
commitment is to the people of your district,
Mhm.
and that whatever that comes to pass as far as the sentiment from that district, that's what you're supposed to be bringing to the table. And this party business is actually supposed to be secondary to that, because we're really there for America, our union, and the people we're representing. So for me, I have a lot of my own personal beliefs of things, but I also am completely and 100% open minded to talk to anyone of any persuasion and hear their story and try to understand uh, how we might be able to come up with an innovative solution that meets the needs of a wider
Okay.
audience.
So, when did you get married? Let's just kind of complete your
Oh.
life story, and then we'll dive into
Yeah, so
politics.
after I came back from Germany, I worked at a advertising agency when I was over there. I actually also worked as a hair model and in a bar for a little while. But when I came back, I did my undergrad at Judson and Elgin. And the reason, so I came back to the United States, actually to Ohio, but I moved back to Chicago to live with my grandparents. I had to pay my own way through college. I didn't have any help from my parents. So my grandparents were so awesome that they let me live at their house under the condition that I had to show them my finances and show them exactly what I was doing. They said, you know,
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing
right,
wrong with that.
let you be here rent free. But I had to work my way through college. So I was working at an insurance company and then doing my schooling in that insurance company was where I met my husband. So we,
Hold one second. So, we have I have a lot of kids that kind of follow what I'm doing, and they are in the schools, and they are going through college, and they have a hard time with the parents. And so, this is a perfect example that even a couple of decades ago, when we were in the school, we had to do similar things. And so, kids, don't be afraid. Work with your parents. They've been like us before, and so there's nothing to be afraid, and more communication, and they will allow you to save money while you're living with them. And so that is important. That's a springboard to something that will help you overall, and you will remember that for the rest of your life. So sorry. So you got married.
Yeah, my grandfather was actually really very strict, and there were a lot of people in my family that really didn't like that rigidness. But looking back on it now, I so appreciate that. So, to the young people, sometimes those rules can seem harsh, but if they love you, they're doing that for a reason to help you and to build the discipline that you need to have good work ethic, to have financial literacy, and to be able to be a successful adult.
Amen
So
to that.
I appreciate the rigidness that he applied, even though at times it was really hard, because I pretty much would get up in the morning, get ready, go to work. I would work all day, and then I would go to school from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., and then go home exhausted, go to bed, get up and do it over again. And I graduated top of my class. By the time I graduated, I was debt free because I was able to pay as I went along. I had gotten promotions at work paid for part of the education. I was also running the department by the time I graduated. So it was just really a great experience, even though I can't look back and say I had the typical college experience. I didn't get to do all the fun extracurriculars. It was very rigorous in just the education and work. But
So I have a question for you as far as, since we're talking about Cajun College, as you
Yeah.
experienced it back in the day, I think the key point that I taking from that, you worked and paid for your college, which was
Yeah.
really important. Well, today the colleges are ridiculously expensive. And I just went through it and with my daughter. And then what drove me crazy when we look at the loans to kind of see how the loans working, not only the kids cannot take a loan on themselves, if they do, that's very little, that doesn't even pay for half a semester. So they have to involve parents. And when I look into it, and we're trying to go through the process to applying, now these enormous interest rates just jump at me, 7, 8, 9%. It depends on the credit score. And so I think the number that we were looking at is like $50,000 for a year. And you overpay $16,000. And so as you going to be federal employee in the Congress, I would love that somebody like yourself, along with other colleagues, come up with some ideas for the youngsters that they can have a 2% federal loan. So the burden is smaller. We cannot be helping corporations to make money on the kids. What's your take on that?
I think that we need to take a look at the cost of education overall. I think it's completely out of control. And the interest rates, there could be a way in which we have some endowments where they're getting loans from those, and the interest rates are probably at about 3 or 4% more the rate of inflation. And hopefully we get the rate of inflation back down.
Sure.
But then also taking a look at how much are you going to be making when you get out of school? I do like the change that they just recently made where they capped the amount of money, so say for nursing school, because they were pretty much saying that the institutions were taking advantage of the fact that they could get loans for these high amounts, but they would be stuck paying those for a long period of time because they weren't going to come out of school making enough to be able to pay that down. And I think it's really important for kids to get some financial literacy before they go to school to understand the commitment that they're making. Because this idea that we have a bunch of people that get out of school and then they're all mad about their student loans, or they want to get that all paid off or to have it all wiped away. It's like, look, you committed to that. You should have known what you were getting into. And I don't think we want to put them in a situation in which they're getting into more than they can afford. So we have a lot of kids now that are going for 4 years and then they're deciding to go for another 2 years because they maybe can't, get a job, and they're just incurring more debt rather than, with some kids, I think they should go work for a couple of years, save some money, and then go to school because then they actually just have a better idea of life. Too many of them, they go into school, they're paying, $50,000, $60,000 a year, and they study something for a little while and then they completely change their mind, lose a lot of the credits, right? Versus going to a community college part-time, working part-time, and kind of figuring yourself out and really knowing what you want to do and how that education you're getting is actually going to propel you into a career that's going to make the money that's worth the education
Just
that
the studying,
you paid for,
absolutely.
right? And I think that's, if you look at what Charlie Kirk, I know a lot of people really bash Charlie about some of the things he would say, college is a scam, but they were missing the point of his message, which was you should know why you're going to school. What are you going to school for, and how is that education propelling you to that next level? And there's so many careers where, like sales, do you really need to go get a 4-year degree to be in sales?
Well, I think you do need to have some sort of form of proper writings and communications, but you don't have to probably spend 4 years, doing just that, right?
Truly, that should be covered in the K through 12.
That's a good point.
Right?
That's a good
If
point.
our K through 12 was working, that would be covered. And then we could have kids that are doing internships and then studying where companies are paying for the education, because I see that as being a win-win. You have companies like Chipotle where they give at least $5,000 a year for education.
Oh, wow.
So if you have some kids that they're working at Chipotle and then they're going to the community college, they can have a good portion of their tuition paid for.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get their 2 years of their gen eds out of the way. And then they figure out what specifically they want to do and they go somewhere else. It really reduces the entire cost of education. And I think that makes a lot of sense for people that don't have the money. Now, if you have a family that has been putting away in a 529 for years and you've got a ton of money and you can go to any school you want and spend $50,000 to $100,000 a year and that's not a problem, then by all means you should do that. But
That's utopia for most kids in this nation.
yeah, I don't think that most kids have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we need to be realistic and not expect that every kid's going to go to that Ivy League school that costs a lot of money and that some have to get creative and work within what they have. I didn't have any money, and so I had to get creative. I bought used books and then I sold my used books. I paid nothing for books at all. There are ways to go to college and to make it affordable. But when you have an entitled attitude, we get
Yeah,
some of
but
the problems that we have right now.
family block, right, is really important. So mother and
Absolutely.
father must be teaching the kids, hey, you don't need a brand new books. Use the old ones. You don't have to be, shining on a horse, riding, through all these expenses. You need to dig a little deeper inside of you. You don't have to have a newest car. You can use a used car. And have it the same way. And once you earn your own money, then you can springboard to anything that you want in the world.
I didn't have a lot of that guidance when I was younger. I mean, my grandfather offered a lot of that to me when I was living there as an adult. But yeah, I think it is important to have a mentor.
Mhm.
And that's why I think people that have done well in life, I think it is sort of an obligation that we should give back and help young people that don't have good mentors, because mentorship is everything.
For sure. So let's jump into you got married and you have 3 children. Can you tell us the names and the ages now and who's driving you the most crazy?
Yeah, I think my kids would like to be left out of all of it, right? They don't like to be on social media, and they're pretty low key overall. But I have a 22-year-old son who's a musician and
Okay.
very talented. I have a 20-year-old daughter who's now an electrician and
Oh, electrician.
yeah, and rides her motorcycle.
Okay.
So her boyfriend's very protective, so I appreciate that. He watches out for her because I tell you, the motorcycle thing scares the daylights out of me.
Yeah. It's not usually how you ride. It's about the surroundings around you. Who can actually.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I trust her to be safe, but there's a lot of variables there.
Mhm.
And then I have an 18-year-old who's kind of finishing up his high school experience.
Does he have any directions yet?
No idea.
No idea.
No idea. So
Okay.
we've got to figure that out at some point here.
Okay.
He's got a little time.
And now let's talk about husband for a second.
Yeah. So we met. He was actually managing the IT department, and I was in marketing. And we worked at the company for about little over two, maybe 2.5 years. We kept our relationship
Mhm.
private, and then he left and went to work for IBM. And
Okay.
then we kind of came out that we were dating and got engaged shortly thereafter.
So how long you were dating before you got engaged?
About 3 years, I guess.
And from engagement to wedding?
Probably another year.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's a decent
I think
short
my
time.
stepbrother had told me, it just really stuck with me. He's like, you don't know somebody until you've been with them for 3 years.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know. That was really,
Yeah.
really in my mind that, okay, you really should know somebody. So we actually got engaged in Maui.
We got my wife. We got married in Maui. Yeah. So yeah, we got Maui, and so
You got
yeah,
Maui'd.
yeah,
It was
pretty cool.
it was my grandmother's retirement party,
Hmm.
so we were there. And
Nice.
yeah, where were you at when you were in?
Well, we were in a Ritz
Manhattan?
Carlton. We got a first credit card that we maxed out $5,000. We didn't have nobody to fly with us. It was just me and my wife, and then we got married and come
On the
back
beach?
on the beach. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We were throwing
gorgeous.
some dows, harvest, and we had witnesses that we never met before, so it was kind of new to us. But okay, so what's the name of your husband?
Jeff,
Jeff.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. So and now you've been married for how many years?
a long time. Let's see, it was 2001, so 25 years that we've
25
been
years.
married, yeah,
Okay,
and 28 years that we've been together.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
29, yeah.
All right, so we covered your family, and so let's talk about politics now. I think there's a lot of different angles what politics mean for different people because everybody have a different problems, right?
Yeah.
But so let's for the moment leave Illinois alone and let's focus on the federal government. We have a global issues, with adversaries like Russia, China. I do business in China, and so I know a little bit about the world outside the borders of the United States. Also, immigration, is very important topic right now, right? It's a wedge between two parties and individuals around the country. So let's talk about the China. How do you see China, and United States?
China's a complicated one. We have a lot of production over there. We've got a dependency
Mhm.
in many regards. We got very accustomed to getting cheap products in
Right.
China and sort of a two-tiered system of what was made. Many companies, I know manufacturers, some of them that I worked with through my marketing firm, they would have some production done in the United States and some production done in China, so they could have their cheaper products
Mhm.
to deliver and be price competitive, and the higher quality done here in the United States. It's tricky because those tariffs greatly impact business and our entrepreneurs here in the United States, but at the same time, it also, I think, that dependency gets us accustomed to a lot of gluttony. I mean, I personally think that the old way of American made, it's really high quality, it lasts forever, is better in so many ways to this cheap, disposable, fast.
First moving products. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I think the problem what people facing, the greed by the corporations, they want to keep making more and more, and so old good American is no good, for the business anymore, right?
Well, it's the
Most of
planned
time.
obsolescence that came into place, right?
Mhm.
Like I can make a lot of money if I can sell it to them over and over again.
Absolutely.
If they buy their Levi's jeans that last them 20 years,
Yeah, have a jeans that have 20 years, from 2000s and still,
I have some amazing leather shoes that I purchased that are
See, there
20,
you go.
30 years old. They last. And we buy really good high quality stainless steel stuff, and that lasts a really long time.
Mhm.
But then those companies aren't making a lot of money on repeat
Right,
buys.
for sure.
So it's a little complicated. I think also something that we hardly ever talk about is that when we outsource our manufacturing to China, we put the pollution over there in China.
Mhm.
And we cleaned up our own environment.
Mhm.
So when we talk about bringing production and manufacturing back to the United States, we also have to take that into account,
Mhm.
right? That we're
No, for
talking
sure,
about
yeah.
bringing the pollution and how are we going to bring the manufacturing back? I do think that there are a lot of problems with the patents. Basically you have stuff manufactured over in China and then immediately they can mimic that product and undercut.
Yeah, well, the reality with this is you can win a lawsuit, but if you want to go collect to Chinese companies, you won't be able to collect. That's kind of the end of it. And I think that's what Trump was trying to put forward. It's like, hey, China, we need to get on the same kind of playing the ball either direction. So let's pivot into Russia, Ukraine, and like the problem with the Ukrainian war today. How do you see that playing out, and do you agree, disagree with the way of Biden administration versus Trump, what are they doing, and how do you see that?
Well, if you look at that, like the Minsk Accords and just like what was going on, I think the interference that we had in that push towards NATO was a mistake. I think that definitely made Russia uneasy.
Mhm.
And there was already turmoil happening within certain areas, like in the Donbass region. I know there was a lot of turmoil there,
Mhm.
sort of their own civil war happening. And there were some people that personally identified as more Russian than Ukrainian.
Right.
And it's important to let them work out their issues and make those decisions. And the interference that the United States had, I'm not privy to a lot of the confidential information, so I'm not sure if it was a matter of resources, that we wanted them to be part of NATO,
Mhm.
because certainly they have a lot of important resources,
Sure they do.
uranium. I mean, they have
Yeah.
natural resources that we definitely want and want to make sure that we have good relationships with them.
Right. Right.
So there are a lot of those things that I think the American people aren't necessarily privy to, and we can make a lot of assumptions. But overall, I mean, certainly the United States interfered, and then we continued to support Zelensky in not negotiating that out early on, and now it's just sort of become a mess that even Trump isn't able to stop at the
To
moment.
clean up really fast. Well,
Yeah.
my wife is Ukrainian,
Mhm.
so we have some ties into the Ukraine, in that direction. There's a lot of corruptions, that comes from Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic eastward. I mean that's been rooted into the societies, for since World War II. But I think. I mean, it's not what I think. It's about what you will do, or what directions when you have to raise your hand, either for this or that, right? But Ukraine is a special country because it's quite large. It's a breadbasket of Europe. They have the
Yep.
best soils in there. They have a lot of, like you said, natural resources. But Russia stepping over they feel like it's like a gateway to Europe. Russians historically they had appetite, to expand, right?
Yes, the
And so,
imperialism.
but I don't want to probably continue with that because we have more topics to go to because this is very special, on its own.
So, in general, I stand on the American first, and I don't think we should be managing everything in all these other countries. But I think there are certain instances, like with kind of what happened with Venezuela, that was an entirely different situation. So I think there are some things in which it makes sense. I don't like the endless wars and the regime change, and I don't think we should be funding that. The military industrial complex has become
Mhm.
incredibly large, and I
Right.
definitely don't want to be feeding that. We have our own problems here on our homeland that we need to take care of, and we need to put that first. So it was disappointing to see them continue to send so much money abroad, and just have that being um, being funneled in some ways. It felt like money laundering
Oh yeah,
a
I
little bit,
can
right?
I can see that. Yeah, yeah.
'Cause
There's a lot of wasteful spending. I mean that,
yes,
like to your point, we would be able to reduce property taxes. For people they are over 65. Completely. Eradicate them. I mean, so they can have a nice part of their life. I mean,
well,
towards their
property
life.
tax is an entirely different thing from the perspective of 73 to 76% is going to the schools. So that's
yeah.
the discussion about education, which, on a federal level, we've got the Department of Education, and we really do have to ask that question of what is it doing and how is it beneficial? And it's a whole nother layer of administration, and administration is our biggest cost in education here at the state level, within the districts, and then also to have another level on a federal basis.
Mhm.
And is all of that administration actually providing enough benefit for the cost associated? Because we see that they came out with the federal sex standards, or, sex education standards, and they were doing this website. It was amaze.org, I believe is what it was. I went on there and I was like, okay, we don't need to be funding that. Absolutely not. There were just a lot of things that were coming from the Common Core, came out of the federal standards, And the more I started looking at what they were doing federally, the more I felt that I would prefer to have more local control, and allow the states to make those decisions for education and empower the parents so that I was listening. Byron Donald's wife was talking about education recently at the Turning Point event that I went to. And she said that's actually how they got involved in politics because their kids were having trouble with Common Core. And I had the same issue with my kids. They were crying about math. And it wasn't the math that I learned. I thought I was good at math. And I was trying to help them. And they said, Mom, you don't understand. That's not how the teacher does it. That's not.
Oh, I see.
So I wasn't able to help them because they were saying that that's not how you do it. It's very frustrating. So anyway, she had the same experience. And so she went to the school. And the school said, well, no, it comes from the Regional Board of Ed. She goes to there. Then, no, it goes to the state. So she's talking to her state representative about the education. And then they're saying, no, it comes here. Ultimately, she ended up at the federal government. She's like, why am I having to talk to my congressman about my local education?
Right.
And so then realizing all these layers of administration and the trickle down, and they're making these decisions, they don't even know what's happening in the classroom. It's very much like the welfare thing I was talking about, right? Where you just have so many layers of disconnect, and then it's like the Titanic to change anything because you just can't shift this big monster for a couple of kids, and we should be able to accommodate kids and meet them where they're at.
So elimination of the government is being so big, to reduce it into the local levels and make sure.
If we got rid of all those levels of administration and we really cut, there are a lot of things that we could do to basically, I think we could easily cut our property taxes in half.
Yeah. Oh, I would love that. Oh, man. Everybody would love that. Oh.
Which would be significant, especially for people here in Illinois that feel like they're being suffocated by our property taxes.
See, when I had a bunch of kids over, we talk about, federal level and state level of, different people running for that. It's like, guys, you have to get involved because if you help to navigate and put the right people into the, into the places, ultimately you're helping your parents, you're helping your grandparents, you're helping yourself. You might not even see it today because you're not making any money. See, I started getting involved and I started making more money because suddenly you see that you're putting big chunk of money to the places that, one, you don't understand what they're doing with the money, right? Because when you earn, let's just say under $100,000, you on a category of income taxes relatively low. I think the average on federal level is 4.5%, which is, the lowest category out of 5 or 7. And you don't really pay attention. But once you start making money and you feel good about yourself, you start only seeing, huge increases. And so whether it comes on federal or state level, it's the same thing. Now, let's talk a little bit about voter ID. I think that this is a topic that I think everybody having a problem with that. But what do you think about voters ID?
Actually, it's not really that controversial. So Braver Angels is an organization that helps with depolarization, and they're phenomenal. If you have not looked into Braver Angels, I highly suggest that you check them out and join. It's like $12 a year that they ask for membership, and it's definitely a cause worth supporting. They're really just trying to get people, they have red and blue is how they categorize it, and they just try to have red and blue come together and discuss topics. And they've been doing these citizen commissions. They pick a particular topic and then they bring people together all over the country and they talk about an issue and they try to come up with bipartisan solutions that they can then propose to Congress, which I think is fabulous.
A lot of work, on the behalf,
a lot of work, but what they found is that they could bring people together, and in this environment where they're really listening to one another, they unanimously agreed on voter ID.
Right.
Voter ID is only controversial because we have this partisan thing going on where somebody says something's, the sky is blue. No, I'm sorry, the sky is gray. The refusal to go along because it's a different political ideology.
Oh, yeah. It's sad to see that, unfortunately, the Democrats that I don't know. We have a few friends that they are either wealthy or successful in Chicago. They are Democrats, and they just don't get it. What's going on with people? Why they just want to do it? I'm not going to do it because somebody says, and I will do the opposite just because.
Yeah. Well, TDS is incredibly powerful, and the media has really manipulated people in a way where it's sort of almost automatic. Just because someone said it, it's not a good idea. So I ran as an independent in 2024 because I just really felt called to get out and change hearts and minds. That was a revelation that I had where God said, just go out, talk to people, and change hearts and minds, get people to see the humanity in one another again.
Mm-hmm.
And when I would propose conservative ideas to people that generally voted Democrat, they were completely behind them.
Okay, all right.
But
So there's a hope.
But the minute you put an R, so now that I'm running as a Republican, you could talk to the same people, and suddenly now they can't support you. They can't get behind that idea or even my candidacy just because there's an R there.
Wow.
So this is a psychological thing that we've got to overcome. It's really challenging. I really try not to demonize the Democrats, but there is definitely a psyop there that, I hope that we can somehow deprogram them.
Yeah, I feel like I'm Democrat in my heart because I have empathy and I help, in the past. But I am Republican in my mind because you want to see check and balances, you want to see common sense, and that's not happening. And then voter ID, let's just kind of touch on it.
Yeah.
I feel that if you need to have a ID for library, why not have a voter ID similar like ID or driver license in Illinois, right? You have this golden star, on the top that you actually verified as a citizen. So it should be easy. You go to the DMV, you show the ID, right, and you get voter ID.
There really is no logical reason to not require it. And like I said, most reasonable people agree with that. And especially if you can make IDs available to people that don't have funds. And there is a way. I mean, if you are, if the money is a problem, you can let them know at the DMV, and I think they waive it, or there's something else that you can fill out.
Yeah, but $5,
I mean, everybody's
for
got to
now.
be able to get an ID.
Right.
And so as long as we can address that, I just don't see any reason why we shouldn't be requiring ID to vote. And the SAVE Act, so it's been very disappointing to me that the Republicans have not been able to get it together. They passed the SAVE Act in the House last May, I think, and it's been sitting on the shelf, and it has to go through the Senate. So the Senate has just not done their job whipping the votes. I think they needed to get like 6 extra votes to pass that. And to my knowledge, they're only 1 or 2 votes off, and they're not doing it. And this would change everything. So are you familiar with the SAVE Act?
No.
Okay, so the SAVE Act was drafted to require that states that are running federal elections would have to use voter ID. So basically then we're saying if you're going to run your federal candidates, you have to use voter ID. So then ultimately they would be forced. So that's a federal lever that can be used.
But it should be pushed on a state level. It should be
It should
mandatory.
be, but this is a way to sort of force the states to have to comply.
Yeah, to
with
start
that.
at least somewhere, right?
I mean, of course, you'd have J.B. Pritzker fighting that because that's just what goes on in our state.
Yeah.
But it really needs to get passed, and they're pretty close. I wish we'd have people calling their senators and really just pushing across the board that.
All right, so voter ID is tied into the illegal immigration because that's kind of how Democrats getting some of the votes, and that's probably why there is a hurdle to overcome because they wanted their base not to be smaller, right? Because if people can vote. So where do you stand on immigration today? When we look at the history and last history of since Clinton, the deportation. And I think Clinton deported 12 million people. Obama deported 3.5 million people. Biden 2.5 million people, and nobody had a problem with that. Not even Republicans were kind of fighting that. And today, I think Trump. By the way, I think he's doing a great job. All the people that they working for DHS and they are ICE agents. only message that I would have for them is be gentle. We know that nothing is perfect. Admit to certain things, but share as much information on some medias that actually report the truth, because medias are, I think they are the biggest enemy of people today. The way they are. But that's maybe another story. Where do you stand on immigration? What do you think needs to happen?
Yeah, so immigration is something that has to be reformed, the process overall. Going back 20 years ago, I had participated in sponsoring people and,
You
help.
personally
Yeah,
sponsor people?
yep.
Okay.
And so I'm well aware of the process and the brokenness that has been there for a very long time. And for me, I see it that, so let's say you've got family back home in Czechoslovakia and you want to sponsor them to come here. If you can fill out the paperwork and show that you have the funds to make sure that you're underwriting them and they're not going to be on our welfare system,
Correct.
you're going to take care of it, that's part of your life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think that's
Absolutely.
your right to be able to then bring them here. I don't think that means we automatically pass out citizenship to them, but they should be able to get a visa to come and live here with you. And
As long as you can, and
as long as you're taking
if
care
you
of
don't
their,
keep the obligations, then they have to be deported.
and they go back because they're not supposed to be on our welfare system, right?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
And that process was painful. Like doing that process was painful 20 years ago. And actually, I think it's still a problem. We should be able to have a process where you go in, you fill out all that information. They can do a background check. They can check your funds. They can see that you're able to do that. That should be like within 72 hours. You should have turnaround, right? Like,
Right.
let's laugh.
Oh.
It took 9 months. We had one woman, we had to send her back home because we didn't get the approval in enough time. And so we just ship her back home and wait 9 months. And then, she came back. But I was really very committed to making sure we didn't overstay visas, right? Because I just didn't want to see any of these young women get stuck where they were penalized in their country and not able to come back here.
Right. Because once you get back, you have a red stamp, and then
then some of them you get penalized for 10 years,
Right,
that you
right.
can't go anywhere. So, following the rules is important, but we also need to make sure that our process isn't ridiculous like that it takes so many months just to get a quick answer for people that are trying to do it the right way. And then over the last 5 years, we just had people flood over the border. So we have this is why I do say comprehensive immigration form, because it's not just what's happening at the border that's the problem. I mean, we've had issues with immigration just across the board. And so we need to create a better online system that's able to process and do the proper vetting. And then the border needs to be closed. So I love what Trump did, just kind of shutting that down. We don't have as many people coming across the southern border right now. And that's absolutely an imperative.
That's what makes country.
Because they're cutting in line. Right? You have all these other people that want to come here and are trying to do it the right way. And they're not going to be on our welfare system. And so that's super important.
Correct.
And then you have these people who are just cutting in line, coming over, and then costing us untold amounts of money. I mean, billions and billions of dollars.
Totally.
And, I just recently, with the incident that happened with Maduro, I wanted to reach out to the Venezuelan community and find out, what are your thoughts? Where are you at? I mean, I really...
Get your own facts, not get it from the media or TV.
Because Maria Corina, I think she's amazing. I think the movement that she created in Venezuela was amazing.
Oh, that's the one who got the Nobel Prize?
Yes. And they won the election. And Maduro has now refused to step down after losing 2 different elections. I mean, we haven't had a Venezuelan embassy in the United States since 2019.
Oh,
So
wow.
basically, they've been on the bad list since 2019 because he lost the election then and refused to step down. So he's been a dictator and basically a illegitimate ruler for that long. And that's part of the reason that I think, there was a leeway for him to do what he did, because he didn't have diplomatic immunity, not being the legitimate ruler of the country. And over 50 different countries acknowledge that. So, we have international support on the fact that he's basically a dictator who's taken over the country. And the people want to be freed. We've had so many people that have immigrated. That mass migration that we have from South America is because we have these drug cartels and all this bad stuff happening down there.
From Mexico,
human
Colombia
trafficking,
to Venezuela.
yeah, the weapons, everything. And I do remember Delia Ramirez, our current congresswoman, who has such a soft spot for just having open borders and being able to just give them all the benefits that we have up here. She made some statement a couple years ago talking about we need to look at why they're coming over. They need asylum because they're being persecuted. Well, look, now we're trying to do something. We're trying to actually help the people of Venezuela, right? So that we can.
And you demonize because, you're doing something for it, So it's
right. Is it, you can't win. I say you can't win on that one, right?
It's a hypocrisy, left and right.
But when I reached out to the head of the Illinois Venezuelan Alliance, we had a great conversation. We were completely in alignment with our views on this, and they would love to see peace in Venezuela. And there are so many people here that would love to go back home if it was peaceful over there and if they didn't have this dictator. So we, during the last 5 years, she said, we have gone from, I think there were 15,000 Venezuelans roughly in Illinois to somewhere between 50,000 and 200,000. They weren't even sure. But many of them, because of the poverty and the condition economically over there, they can't even read or write. So they came here and they couldn't even put them in ESL because they
are not even that far to even go through the process.
So we've got to actually teach them their own language before we can then teach them English. And if you look at the costs associated with all of that, it's unduly burdensome on our citizens. It's so much cheaper to actually have them go back to their country and do that education there in their own country.
Okay. Well, so
I'm for immigration. I think it has to be done legally. I think we need the rules and law in order. We need to deport the people that came here over the last 5 years. I am for the Dignity Act with some changes. Maria Salazar she's a Cuban representative from Miami, Florida. She just proposed the Dignity Act, which would give people that have been here for more than 5 years the ability to apply for this dignity status where they could work here. They don't get citizenship, but it would help with this, how
it would be a bridge to something more, right?
It would be a bridge for the fact that we have probably 15 to 20 million people that are sort of in limbo land. And if they've not had any criminal record and they're not on our welfare system and they want to stay here, then we need to give them a way to not be fearful and have like some actual legitimacy in their residency here. And I'm for that. I think we definitely need to do that. But we need to get them off of our welfare system, and they need to be productive members of our society.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I speak for Czech Republic, Slovaks, Polish, Russians, Balkan countries, all of these, because a lot of my friends been in this nation for 20 plus years. They have kids that they are now 20, 22, 23, some are military, everybody going into the college, right? But they still have a fear of being caught by, ICE on the streets. And, like the difference is that there's a lot of people in the United States that they have a criminal record and they overstay their visa, or there is this temporary ESTA. ESTA is like a temporary visa that a lot of people came in. It's very quick online.
Visitor visa.
Visitor visa, yeah. It's not a visa. It's ESTA. You get it for 2 years, but you can stay only 90 days.
Right.
And then you can renew it. Very clever, to get it. But a lot of people overstay. And what media don't report, in my opinion, is that people that got records, criminal records, they usually going away the fastest. I had a friend of mine, unfortunately he got a DUI. He was a nice guy. He was an electrician, I would put my, a hand into the fire for him. And yet one morning he woke up, went in front of his house, ICE, got him and sent him home in 60 days or so. But, I think that the reform needs to come to address these issues. Like you said, no welfare. You're paying taxes for more than 15 years or so since, the inception, of your, coming into the United States, and have some peacefulness in it, so people can actually function. Yeah, maybe I'm not legal. I don't have a green card yet, but I am part of this process that's coming. That is important. There's 20, maybe 30 million people that are waiting for something like since 1986, the last amnesty that happened, in this country. We need to have something similar. And from that springboard into Borders are closed. There's a legal process. Listen, if in economically, if we need to compete with China and rising India, we need 20 million people every 2, 3 years coming into this nation. We're gonna build more houses. Economy will be turning, right? Things will be positive for this nation. A lot of people don't want to do these jobs, but the people that come here, they will take the lower end jobs, right?
Mhm.
Because that's kind of how it is.
And we can give them those visas, but not necessarily citizenship. So one of the things
Absolutely.
I really love about the Dignity Act, she addressed the fact that people just want dignity. They want a status, but they don't necessarily need to vote. They don't necessarily need that citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
And
Citizenship is a privilege.
citizenship is absolutely a privilege. And I think it should be treated that way. And I think it should be something that if people really want it, that there are hoops that they have to go through to show that they want it. They have to do the assimilation. They've got to learn the language. There's just a bunch of additional things that I think really show I love this country and I want to be a member of this country. You think about like being a member of a church or being when you have an HOA or something like that, your membership, like this is your club. And it always just really upsets me when we have some of these privileged kids that get up there and they talk about how bad the United States is,
Oh.
or, just dog on the United States. And then I think, how about we send you abroad? There are a few countries that could let you go visit for a while to really appreciate what you have here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. One thing that we haven't touched on, we coming close to the end, but Christian values in this nation is so powerful. We have 62% of United States population being Christians. Then there's about 30% non-believers, atheists or agnostics, and then we have a non-Christians, which is Jews, about 2%. Then we have Muslims. We have the Hindus and Buddhism. How do you feel about the integration of all these people together? With like what we just touched on, citizenship is a privilege. You need to acknowledge that you have allegiance, to the flag. You have allegiance to this country, right? You can, in my opinion, do whatever you want behind your closed doors because that's your private property and you can do things there. But on the outside, there needs to be some.
So long as you're not really abusing children, but
Naturally, yes, yeah, and
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. But the Christian values, for me, and my friends call me baby Christians because I got into it not that long ago, is really important. This nation was built. I think God was mentioned in Declaration of Independence four times. Maybe not in Constitution. They didn't want it to have a state be tied with the religion, but I think you can have a Bible in a prison, but you can have a Bible teachings in a school.
Mm-hmm.
That is wrong on so many levels.
Yeah, so it's one nation under God, right? And if you look at the different religions, let's say Muslim and Christianity, Judaism, those are about 75% of the population whole, and they're all monotheistic, right? And they really do stem from the same, God.
God, right?
And so even if you say we're a Judeo-Christian nation, really most Muslims have the same basis, right? It's still the
core
same.
is there.
The core is still the same. And so those are the things, if you think about the 7 deadly sins, right? And then, like the 10 commandments and how we are supposed to live, a majority of people can get behind those. So those should be the things that we stand behind. And what we do know is that, say, prostitution and, drug gluttony of, say, alcohol or drugs, those types of things, that all of that is a sin. It's not good for people. And those are things that I think collectively we should be able to get behind, saying that those are not values that we want to encourage.
No,
like you said, in your own home, but why are we pushing that publicly? Like, why do we have a dispensary, a casino, a bar? Why do we have all these things on every corner? I mean, how many vices does Illinois have to promote to balance its budget.
Mhm.
You know, now they're talking about legalizing prostitution or sex work. And I
Oh,
just
please,
think
no. This is Vegas only. That's,
eh,
leave it there, leave it there, leave it
it's
3,000 miles away.
we're headed down a bad path.
Mhm.
And I think collectively we've got to come together. I often think that Christians and actually all sects of religion do this, but Christianity in particular, think about how many different churches you have, right? Like this one dunks, this one anoints on the head, this one does that. You know, we argue about some of the dumbest things that are just these little nuanced things, but really we should be in pretty much agreement. And because we get fractured, we
Mhm.
lose our power.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
this is exactly what they do in general with trying to divide us, even within, say, the Republican Party or as Americans. When you get people divided, they don't have that collective power. So I think that it's important for us as people to realize that most people do believe in God. Majority of people believe in God, and that we shouldn't be shy in acknowledging that and acknowledging the moral decay that has really damaged our country and damaged our children. And we've got to get back to a moral compass. And that's what I would like to see. I would like to see us supporting candidates that will lead with a moral compass and bring back the values that we were founded on.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that. I think some of the stuff that, drives me personally crazy is that, and I think we touched about it on our personal conversation upstairs. Republicans don't seem unified in our state.
Mhm.
I reach out, to a couple of Republicans. I started, like my angle of like, hey, I want to understand this, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and I'm learning that Republicans are divided. They don't want to be seen with one another because somebody has this opinion and someone has a different opinion. It's like, hey, I will lose these voters. How come Democrats did so well? What do you think is the core difference between the Democrats and Republicans in this state, the great state of Illinois?
So the Democrats are better at rank and file, and they get behind somebody and they mobilize and they push that person forward as their representative. We have so many independent-minded people in the Republican Party.
Mhm.
They're all kind of headed in their own, their own little factions, and getting the cooperation is much more difficult. I have observed a lot of the Democrat groups in which it's amazing how they mobilize and they get people out and they've got all their positions filled, like for their precinct committee people,
Mhm.
and the Republicans just don't. That's the organizational piece is missing, and that's really hurt the Republicans because they didn't have to do it a long time ago. We had conservative people, and so a lot of them won. And then the Democrats came in, they were super organized, and they just sort of took over.
Yeah, no,
And they get out the vote.
they yeah.
And a lot of Republicans, I think, have been disenfranchised. They feel like we can't win. They're disempowered. They're disgruntled, and they think my vote doesn't matter. So many of them tell me that my vote doesn't matter. We could lose by 9 votes. Well, look, it really did matter.
It does matter.
And so those are, that's so frustrating to me, especially a lot of Christian. There's so many Christian Republicans that are not voting. And I think in Illinois, they've got to get that message that they need to take the responsibility to actually choose the best candidate. And I know sometimes you're going to feel like it's the lesser of the two evils, but you still need to go do it.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's this movement in Chicago Flips Red.
Yeah.
I think
Daniel.
they're doing fabulous. I love them. The way how they promoting it. They are all natural about how they're doing things. So I certainly are glad to see some of the movements in that regard.
Yeah.
But another question is about the primary and general elections.
Yes.
Shed some light, how you see it.
So for me, I really think that one of our struggles for representation, when I mentioned how people think it's the lesser of the two evils, they don't even really have a good choice. Ballot access is really challenging. And our system where we have the primary, you basically take a 2-party system and you have a primary, which means you often, if you do have multiple people running, which sometimes we don't even have anybody.
Can you, hold 1 second,
Yeah,
can you
go ahead.
please explain to our audience, mostly that would be
Oh.
younger kids, what is
Younger
primary and what's the difference on time
Yeah.
from primary to general elections?
So generally the way it works is that if we have an established party, which in the state of Illinois, we only have two established parties. We have Democrat and Republican. And so the established parties, they have their primaries where they're picking their person that they're going to put forward. So the way we have it in Illinois, in September, you start getting, or in August, you start getting the signatures, and you have to turn them in by the end of October. It just got moved up by 30 days this last election. They changed everything. So anyway, you turn in your petition signatures, and as long as you've got the correct amount that the state requires,
What is the requirement?
it depends on the particular office.
Okay.
So with some of them, there's a flat amount, and then others, it's based on the percentage of people that voted in the last election. So it changes each election.
So how many signatures you had to put together?
So interesting enough, when I ran as an independent in 2024, I had to get 9,227
9,000 signatures as an independent?
Yes.
Holy moly.
But the Republican only had to get 227.
Republican nominee?
Yeah.
Oh, we can get it on our street.
That's what I'm saying. It's crazy. It was it's so different, right? When I would show people the chart and say, look, this is how many you have to get as an independent, this is how many you have to get as a Republican, they're like, that actually doesn't even make any sense.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's because they don't want to have too many people jump on.
Sure.
Because those people don't have to be in the primary.
Right.
But I would also argue those people are running as independents. They don't have the infrastructure. They have to create their own infrastructure.
Sure.
So they have their own challenge in general of running. So I'm not sure why they have to get that many more. It is absolutely ridiculous. So this time the Republican needed 445, I think, or 455, somewhere in there.
You needed less than 500 signatures?
I needed less than 500. It was I turned in 2,000 something. I just went ahead and got a lot of extras.
Yeah. In the case that they want to push you out.
Yes. But, the other thing is they gerrymander these districts. So, you get these maps that are just drawn. You've seen this,
yes,
right?
Weirdly. They makes no sense.
So it's really hard to figure out who's in your district. You go out to get signatures, and unless you go door to door, you don't even know if the person's in the district because the maps are so nutty. And if you go door to door, we have Ring doorbells now. No one answers the door.
Nobody answers.
Yeah, nobody answers, especially if I have a clipboard. They're like, are you selling me a roof or windows or what are you doing? So anyway, the primary, you go and get the signatures that you need. It varies depending on the particular race that you're running. I think like our DuPage County people, they had to get 1,500. So you want to get double that because we have a game in Illinois where they want to kick you off the ballot. So, everybody's checking your signatures and trying to see if they are
legit,
you.
Right? Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a racket overall. And then once you make it through that process, then you're on the ballot for the primary. Then you go against other people within your party. You get chosen, and then you go against the independents and the other party.
Other party, yeah.
In the general election.
But the primary start, it's by March 17th this year, right?
So in Illinois we have voting season. You got like 45 days to vote. It's a little out of hand. I personally think that should be narrowed back down to
2-3 weeks.
2 weeks at most. And then if you're not going to be in town, you should be able to apply for an absentee ballot, like we always had. But this idea that it's 45 days is way too much. It costs us so much money to do that because we have to man all of the stations, pay for election judges and everything. And it also is ripe for things not being so up and up.
Right. And then there's also option to by the mail, right? You can vote by mail.
Yeah, you can sign up.
What are your thoughts on that?
You can sign up for the mail-in and I think it's like permanent mail-in ballot. So they're going to be sending it even when your kids move out. You're still going to be getting those. I think that's definitely ripe for abuse. And we saw that in Illinois. People, when I was getting signatures, would ask, was the election stolen? This was like a litmus test to decide whether or not they thought I was crazy.
Uh-huh.
So was the election stolen? And I would say, well, I don't know if it was stolen, but what I can tell you is my experience was I was at the county building the day after the election in 22, and there were thousands upon thousands of ballots that were just dropped off at these polling places. And they were opening them up and they were processing them, and they weren't letting us get very close, but they weren't checking the signature. So Deanne Mazzocchi, she was one of my favorite Illinois legislators, and Deanne sued them and won. I mean, proved in court they were not doing their due diligence. They were supposed to be checking the signature, but the problem is it was already done. Like there's no way to undo that. You don't know what the results would have been. So I would tell people, I don't know if it was stolen, but what I can tell you is this happened. It was proven in court that they were not doing that correctly, and I can't trust those election results. So I don't know what it should have been, but I think it very well could have been different
Oh my, that's horrifying.
because she was ahead, and then they counted all of those that got dropped off,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she lost by a small margin.
Wow. So
Yeah.
people, you need to. The best idea is to go in person and vote.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is. And you have like you said, the window is so big, right? So you can definitely find yourself, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday
And
during
February 5th it starts, so I recommend February 5th, go to your county building and vote because it's really easy. There's usually not a big long line, and you can just go and get it done. But my really strong recommendation to everybody is always ahead of time, say at least a week ahead of time, or however much time you need to do your due diligence. But go to your county website, go under elections, find your sample ballot, print it out. And then that way you can see all of the things that are going to be on the ballot because we have a lot.
sample ballot. This is the first time I'm hearing it.
Yeah. So I say do your homework ahead of time. It's your cheat sheet, right?
Oh,
So go get your sample ballot. And, on this one, we're going to have the governor, U.S. Senate, because Dick Durbin's not running. So we got a whole bunch of people that are in that race, Attorney General, Comptroller, Secretary of State, your House seats, congressional candidates, and then your county-wides, which are your board chair, district, representative, sheriff, clerk, treasurer, regional superintendent of schools, forest preserve president, your appellate judge candidates, and potentially ballot measures. That's a lot.
that's a lot.
And if you just go in there thinking, I'm going to vote on the governor candidate, but then you see all these other things and you don't know what's what, then you end up just guessing, which is terrible. So you want to print out your sample ballot on the website and then Google these people. Look for debates. I think debates are really great to watch because then you get to see all of the people that are running together. And then check out their websites. And if you have specific things that really matter to you, send them an email and ask, like, what's your position on this, that, or the other? And I do that with every election. And then often I'll take my recommendations and I'll send those out to close friends of mine.
This is a great message. I totally love it.
Yeah.
Okay. What do we haven't covered that is important in your opinion?
Well, actually, we didn't cover MAHA, and that's probably one of the things that's really most core at my heart, which is the fact that we have a chronic disease epidemic with our children.
So can you, MAHA, specifically
yeah.
spell it out what that is?
So MAHA is Make America Healthy Again, and that was the initiative that Bobby Kennedy was pushing, that we have a tsunami ahead of us that we will not recover from if we don't get our kids healthy, because we won't have a thriving workforce to take care of everybody else, right? And we have so many kids that are anxious, depressed, they have autoimmune conditions. Over 75% are either overweight or obese. Huge problem. Because then also they're more susceptible to disease. And then the rising rates of turbo cancers and all these other things that are coming into play. This is not sustainable. And when they want to push this idea of universal health care, say, well, insurance was meant to be more catastrophic, right? Like catastrophic insurance. Like we have to have some
Absolutely.
responsibility for our own health.
That
And
comes
then-
down to family again, right?
Absolutely. And so the areas that we see that have the worst outcomes are those that can't afford good nutrition and actually don't understand how important nutrition is.
Sure.
And many of those people are applying for welfare programs. So they're getting SNAP funds and they're getting the free lunch at school. And I sat on our wellness committee for our school district, and it was run by, or the chair of it was the head of the food service program, and it was a for-profit. We get in these sort of heated conversations about why are they using their federal credits for chocolate milk loaded with sugar and cookies.
Yeah.
They're not getting an actual meal. I mean, these are the kids that need nutrition the most, and we're just loading them up with sugar, and then we wonder why we have ADD, ADHD, we have more health conditions, and everybody's on an IEP or some 504 plan where they have a special education that's costing us way more money. So it's costing us money on the welfare. It's costing us money on increased educational services. And then ultimately, then you see those people don't do as well in society and then maybe criminal. So ultimately, it just costs society so much because we're making poor choices. And, I've had some young people say to me, oh, just let them destroy themselves, let them self-implode. And I said, we are symbiotic. I mean, we are all connected.
And we have a responsibility as adults, people in office.
We do. And so it's impacting us whether we want to acknowledge it or not. And so if we're going to spend tax dollars to say that it's for helping the most vulnerable, then it should be addressing the actual nutritional needs. So sugary drinks shouldn't be included. Cheerios, I mean, that food pyramid we had before was a little ridiculous because they were trying to give kids, what was it? It was pizza in a plastic bag. Oh, my kids and I, we would have conversations about this. So pizza in a plastic bag and the ketchup is your vegetable.
Oh, man.
It's disgusting.
That's it.
Right?
Oh.
And the phthalates and all the other, chemicals and everything else in there. So I really am very passionate about the movement and the fact that, we've been talking with farmers and how can we get regenerative agriculture and get schools connected with farms so kids understand how their food grow, how
Oh, that's
their
a great idea.
Well, and why don't we have greenhouses at the schools so that they can be learning science and nutrition and just so many different things you can do in a greenhouse, right?
Oh, for sure.
But getting them back in touch with nature and soil and living soil rather than this mono agriculture that we do where we just spray chemicals and kill everything, which ultimately Rachel Carson back in the 60s, she was sort of the mother of the environmental movement. She wrote Silent Spring, and she talked about the pesticides, herbicides are actually biocides. They kill all life, right? And so we have to remember that. So for me, this movement to get back to health and getting kids to understand and take responsibility for their own health, they can then bring that home, to their families. And I want to inspire families just across the country to take more ownership of their health, to make better decisions, to give them better science so that they can make better decisions and help actually mobilize the free enterprise system by letting people vote with their dollars for the type of world that they want to see. Vote for better products. That's why I buy organic, because I want to support more.
That makes sense.
More of that type of thing. And I know we were talking earlier about, the raw milk. Such a controversial topic overall. You say that and people think, oh, you're crazy. But
that's the brainwashing, that's what media puts you on, right? Like raw milk is absolutely great for you, and then in the stores in Chicago needs to be not for human consumption, and people still buying it. I'm buying it. We've been drinking this for years now, and you don't get fat, you don't get bloated, you don't get a gas, right? Like all this stuff that's coming, from these processed foods. All right, so almost done. Congress is a federal, body. Now, what can you do to help Illinois? Can you work with local agencies, as a Congress woman? Because I think we covered. We did not cover the idea about you don't have an opponent on the Republican side,
right?
So you going to general without anybody casting a single vote for you. Is that understood?
Well, I mean, I do need some votes in the
Okay.
primary, but
Okay.
that should be covered.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's any writing candidates, but yeah, I mean, I do need people to vote for me in the primary,
Okay.
but I should pass through to run in the general.
And you're gonna
against
go
Delia
against
Ramirez.
Delia Ramirez, correct?
Yep.
But I think you have a great shot, to go against her. I did a little bit of research on her, and whatever she, preaching is completely against values of, Christianity, against the, common sense that we all need. So I think you have a great shot, to take her down. But you become Congresswoman. How can you work with local governments, local agencies, state of Illinois, the way it is, or hopefully it will change? Can you, kind of put your sense into it, or are you only obligated to federal issues?
Oh, no, it's absolutely hand in hand. And you want to be working with your state officials, especially the ones that overlap in my district. So there are a number of state representatives that would share constituents, and then also the townships. So you want to be working with them to understand what their challenges are, what's not working in their areas, and how we can get federal resources to help support them. And also from a perspective of legislation, is there legislation that's in your way? One of the things we were doing with the school lunches, we were talking to, Moms Across America, Zen Honeycutt is amazing, and she was facilitating these calls with people across the country that were trying to change the school lunches. And in those calls, we're hearing from them, what are the barriers? What are the legislative barriers to you being able to change your program? And then those are the things that we need to change, whether we change them on a federal level or whether we change them on a local level. So like DCFS, Family Services, we have a lot of issues with abuse happening there, and waste, fraud, and abuse.
Oh,
and
everywhere.
There are certain things from a federal level that are actually fueling some of that abuse. And we have the Title IV, which is reimbursing them for funds. And there can be better oversight done on a federal level that can tighten up some of that abuse.
Okay. Right.
Just like with what we're seeing now with Minnesota, and
it's everywhere.
Yeah,
Everybody knows that. And
so basically, what's so fascinating about that is that people that don't pay attention, all they see is that the federal government is somehow freezing the money because they don't want to give poor people any help, which is such baloney.
Do your research. Look into these things. Don't believe everything that's on the screen.
But really what it is that you find that there's fraud happening. Even in Illinois, we had massive fraud on SNAP. In Illinois, we had people doing fraudulent claims for SNAP, millions of dollars then going in the pockets of certain individuals when it's supposed to be helping the most vulnerable. So anyway, HHS is responsible for those dollars. So the only recourse they have is to have better oversight. And better oversight would be, okay, we are going to require that you show us all of this information so we can audit it as well. And that's really what they did. They said, we want to see all the recipients that are receiving these dollars so that they can run it through and do their own audits. And Illinois, of course, doesn't want to comply. Illinois doesn't want to play nice in the sandbox.
What? That's just like beyond, even thinking.
Right. So this is why they say, oh, well, it's just harming these states. They're just taking it out from, oh, you mean the states that don't play nice in the sandbox. Got it. So, people need to start asking those questions. Like, what are my state legislators doing? Are they sitting at the table and really working out these problems with the federal government? Or are they just digging their heels in and saying, no, we're not going to play. We're not going to give you the information because they don't want to uncover the fraud because they know it exists.
Yeah, totally. Listen, I really love, our time spending with you and covering a lot of topics. A lot of topics come to my mind. Maybe we can do this again, maybe after the primaries, and kind of start focusing more on the federal. And I really thank you, for coming. I think the fabric of this nation is so divided that, people like yourself are here, to fix them, bring people, on the path of prosperity, health, and anything that comes between. And then more importantly, people need to find their own research. They cannot just take, somebody else's opinion to become theirs, because that's kind of what bringing us, into the situations that we are today. So thank you very much for coming. Making a time. I know it's Sunday and you away from your children and your family, but this is your new job, and I think it's tough probably, and there's some challenges associated with it. But really thank you for making a time. And if anybody has more questions, either shoot it to her email or leave it comment down on our Instagram or YouTube, and we can get back to you on a next episode, perhaps.
Yeah, they can go to my website at libertyangel.us, and there you can see a phone number to call if you prefer to do that, or send me an email, or you can just sign up on the website and join us. I greatly appreciate any feedback you have. And if you're able to donate, donations are greatly appreciated. It helps me afford to do the materials to get out to people in the district so that I can get their vote.
Very good. Yeah, we're gonna do party. What I would love to see more Republicans together. If that would be any message that you can take to your colleagues, across, the Northern Illinois, which is our closest, make some parties that people can come together and they can come for free, not expensive dinners. As I saw that some of the comments out there, it's like, hey, the dinner is $200, $300.
Right.
No, we can make a party where people can just pay an open bar and just kind of conversations with any single one of you who's running, for federal or state level. So thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for having me.
Very good. Thank you. Good luck. All right.